Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin, and I don't often have graded currency to show to you, but I was able to get a few pieces in, so we'll take a little bit of a closer look at some of these guys and see what you think about the overall grade and condition of the notes. So this note here, the 1899 silver certificate $5 piece, the Chief, as it is nicknamed, always a beautiful note, and this one you can see has quite a bit of what I would call, wear to it. You can see all these wrinkles in here. Anytime you see a little patchwork like that, that's all wrinkles. And so sometimes what you can do is, especially if you have the light source proper, when you turn a note at an angle, you start seeing those lines pop up everywhere. This is less important on a note like this, which is clearly circulated, than it'll be on a higher grade note, where you're really going to look for those wrinkles and see what you're looking at. Also, so this has a decent amount of just general wear to it, I'd say. Folds, corner folds, things of that nature. And the interesting thing on currency is oftentimes you get two different looks of a note. Just like a coin, one side can look a lot nicer than another. Sometimes it's because you'll get a little bit of maybe some staining to it. Also, when you look at these notes with all of the fibers that are worked into them, this can actually be distracting when you're trying to understand a grade of a note, because sometimes they will be scattered throughout and it's just hard to recognize. It can just be distracting, let's put it that way, like looking through a piece of plastic. So this has a lot of wear to it, lots of folds, but overall the body is still pretty nice on this note. And this is a note that PMG called a VF30, and a real pretty piece. Very, very popular as far as banknotes go. Next, I have one that's actually not graded, but I wanted to show to you because I thought it was such a fascinating bank. The Toy National Bank of Sioux City, Iowa. There's lots of people who collect banknotes based on their name or the title. And I had never seen this bank before. Of course, there's 14,000 plus banks, so it's not surprising that I've never heard of the Toy National Bank of Sioux City. But that's the charter number, 10,139. And overall, real pretty note. And if we tilt it a little bit in the light, we can try to look and see what we see as far as, what lines are on here, what lines are not on here. If the note has some folds to it, increases, and one of the things that you'll see over here actually is a little bit of creasing into the note, just slightly. So this note is not technically uncirculated. It has beautiful eye appeal to it, though. It also has a little bit of a stain up here, which affects it somewhat. But nationals are funny because as long as you've got one that's nicer than the other guys, and there's a little bit of staining down here, as long as yours is nicer than the other one, lots of times collectors will look to upgrade on a note like this. So really, really neat note. Probably in the $400 range on that. Next up, we have a common Federal Reserve note, 1914, 9I. So for those of you who don't know, this is the Federal Reserve District. Think Hunger Games a little bit to understand the districts. And then if you alphabetically know that I is the 9th letter of the alphabet, they go together. And these are interesting because they have both. So Minneapolis is the 9th district. And on earlier or on different notes, you went from having the number. So that the 1928 series Federal Reserve notes will have just the number. And then after that, now you just have the letter instead. So this is a cool note, not a super rare type. This one, choice uncirculated 64, real pretty piece. Exceptional paper quality. You've got all kinds of just lovely vignettes on the note. And one of the things that you want to look out for generally on banknotes is just the sharpness of the corners. This is, I don't want to say it's an afterthought, but it's something to consider. Right, for you to get a higher grade uncirculated condition note, they start to take into account the centering of the note and also those corners. And next up, we have another note, 1917 legal tender, which also has, you'll notice, or maybe you won't notice, these vignettes were reused. I don't know if you've ever noticed this before as I'm running into stuff here. You've got the same vignette on both notes in different areas. Something that maybe you haven't noticed, maybe you already noticed because maybe you've got all the vignettes memorized, but most people do not. And you see vignette after vignette, and some of them are just reused over and over again on different pieces of currency, especially when you had obsolete currency. So very neat, and these also had all the strong language on it that legal tender, for all debts private and public, counterfeiting or altering notes, or having anything false about it, false impressions. It is a felony and is punishable by $5,000 fine or 15 years imprisonment at hard labor or both. I like how the fine print keeps getting smaller, or both, right? Which is different then because, the colonial notes had this really fine little language on there that said, "'tis death to counterfeit," and or "counterfeit death to counterfeiters." There was a sentiment about that was pretty strong. Also a choice uncirculated 64. You're talking about a note that is probably a $500 note also in this condition. Whereas the common date circulated note you can pick up for like $50. So it's all about what type of condition you're looking for on the notes that you're getting. And anytime you want to find out about these notes, remember this number here, the FR number, that's the Friedberg number. That is this book that you want to have, Ira and Arthur and Ira Friedberg, Paper Money of the United States, a complete illustrated guide. And oftentimes the things that will delineate one note from another will be the signature combinations. So you'll see a lot of that on your banknotes when you look at them. You'll see an entire series where the date will change on those. So then you've got all these different ones here. So this is the 1917 series that we have here in front of us. So you can see there are several different listings with subcategories, but lots of times these are the autograph combinations that'll make up the general idea of which note you have. So Spielman White's a more common note. But anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the owl button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.